the election. It's time to talk about the election. It didn't go well. Like, if you're a leftist, it wasn't going great with either of the trolley problems. This is just the worst outcome of the trolley problem by a long shot. It's not really close. A large number of Americans voted very poorly, in my and all of our opinions, and they are now like team misogyny, team mass deportation, team like violence against people. It's not looking good. It's fascism. They have voted for fascists. So now we are going to watch. I guess before we get into this, let's just talk about what we're all thinking. We're gonna watch fascists take control of the government and then enact fascist laws. Definitely gonna happen. There's nothing we can do about it at this point as far as the laws are concerned. God protect America and Donald Trump, you have no future. I mean, yeah, fuck Donald Trump. It's obvious that the people who believe in God are on Donald Trump's side, though. We can look at that statistic, by the way. In fact, if anyone has that particular statistic, it'd be cool if you sent it to me in chat instead of me having to Google on the fly. I'll do it. I will do it, but I think we know there was a trend towards the different kinds of Christianity, and as you got more evangelical, you became more likely to be right-wing, which is just me being correct about religion. Dems are very incompetent. There's a lot of reasons. Look, they're going to write fucking books about this shit, and the liberals are going to get it wrong, and we're going to get it right, okay? The reason that this all went wrong, the long and short of it is that, you know, I mean, you look at the exit polls and what people are saying and what the demographics are, their ages, what best describes your education. Like, well, we're gonna go through these, okay? I'll make it bigger so you can see it even better, so you can see the country you live in better. And it's not as bleak as it would look, right? Like on an electoral map, it looks pretty bleak, but it's really like pretty close 50-50. It's just like the electorate itself is not 50% of people. There's an inactive group of people for, I mean, you know, reasons that we agree with for the most part. What this is bearing out is that the populism of fascist rhetoric is obviously very effective. We've been fighting it for years. So we've been acknowledging it for a long time, but like the propaganda apparatus of Fox News and then like its subsidiary sort of like you could call them just the right-wing media networks of the Daily Wire, TPUSA, fucking Tim Pool, The Blaze, etc. These are all examples of like the top like YouTube or sort of like alt media right-wing spaces. But when you talk about left-wing online, there is the Democrat liberal where it's like studio audience like Jimmy Kimmel. You know what I mean? I think the best of them is John Oliver, and he's a leftist, obviously. But that's not, that's not even like mainstream. That's like cable, right? So like all the rest of them are left-wing, independent, just regular guys, gals, non-binary pals just making content on the internet. And we all have disparate but sort of like generally leftward stuff going on. Meanwhile, the right wing is organized and coordinated in every single media attempt. They just, as a lefty, and I think all of us agree, like we want just what is true and what works to be the things that we do. We are fact-driven and fact-based, and we're not as emotional and stuff as they claim we are. When we make decisions, the left in general, it's not an emotional one typically. We're going by facts, and it bears out that facts don't care about your feelings because right-wingers vote based on feelings. They vote based on populist right-wing rhetoric. They vote based on fear. And if the left wing, the Democrats in this scenario, which aren't very left-wing, if they don't move left and populist with their messaging, they lose. It is borne out in everything. We could look at the Michigan like election, but what happens is someone like Rashida Tlaib, who is a leftist Palestinian, very pro openly Palestinian, so much that she got censored in the House. She got like shut down. She got abandoned by the Democratic Party essentially. And in Michigan, she still won her election. Down ballot from Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris lost the election in Michigan. Rashida Tlaib won her election. This is not coincidental. It's not just a Palestinian issue, though it was very much so that in Michigan, and people were telling her. We were telling them. It's not just that issue, though. It's many issues. I mean, we could talk about... let's just go through this. Obviously, men, overwhelmingly, 55% of men and 53%, or only 45% of women voted for Donald Trump, right? Which obviously, there's a 10-point gap there between just they're saying gender, between the sexes. There is an obvious misogyny problem in the country. It's not the only reason that Kamala lost the election, but this is twice now where we see just that sort of misogyny bears out and just you start losing just random fucking votes, and it's real. And I think we need to acknowledge that, and it sucks to live in that country. It sucks to live in that society, especially if you're, AFAB or, just otherwise femme. People are going to feel a certain way about that. And, I think the women in my life and just peer group are not feeling great that, I guess not convicted, but a civilly liable rapist was given the presidency. And we all know, he's, thousands of hours of Epstein tapes, deeply corrupt guy. All of this stuff is known about him. Anyway, people voted for him anyway. And so it doesn't matter to them because it doesn't affect them materially. So populism needs to be the focus. We need to focus on people's needs. Obviously advocate in your other time, but politically when we're running elections, talk about what people really need. Because most people were worried about the economy. And even though the facts bear out that the Biden administration is doing a good job addressing the problems that the Trump administration left them, it's liberal, bureaucratic, status quo bullshit, and it's not populist or really, really helping a lot of people that much because groceries are still expensive, right? And so when they don't actually make amends on that, it doesn't pan out. And so people don't feel an immediate impact from Democrats because it's always means-tested, slow, bureaucratic, liberal nonsense instead of just address people's needs and meet them. Queen Andy asked, do you think if Biden bowed out earlier and the Dems had an actual primary, we would have a better chance? Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. We probably would have run Bernie or something again. I mean, honestly, based upon the people that were running, and it would have been another old guy, or maybe it was Tim Walz. I don't know. But I do think that would have happened. If we would have run a woman, I am worried that we would have had similar outcomes unless that person was populist and was running on things people need. Yeah, I do think if he bowed out early, which is what we were asking him to do, and he finally did it, and we were like, fucking thank you. And then the vibes were really good, and they ran populist, and now there's I don't even know, I don't want to look up all the tweets, we can just talk about it. Then now there is chatter talking about after they came out with Tim Walz, they were starting to talk like populists, and he was saying stuff like housing is a human right, and we need to get rid of the electoral college, and we need to feed kids, free lunches, et cetera, which people fucking love. All that stuff. Internal Democratic naysayers, liberals, were like, no, we have to court the right. We have to go after this Liz Cheney shit. And we see it bear out. No Republicans voted for Democrats in a way that mattered. It was like they lost 1% of Republicans from last time because they made up for the numbers with the youth vote when they went out and Charlie Kirk's fucking people are out there banking thousands of Fortnite chuds. It works. But now they definitely shackled Walt. I mean, we could talk about why this campaign failed forever and ever. If you look at the numbers, so I'm also seeing a little bit of, let's talk about the liberal response, and even some progressive people. I think you need to think about how you're talking about this. There is a sort of racist thing happening where it's like, oh, look at the men in Latino men. 55% of Latino men voted for Donald Trump, and then now they're getting kind of this I hope you get deported thing. And it's like I understand that that's gonna happen to some extent. You're mad and whatever, but we don't. The reason we're upset is because they're going to get deported. You know what I mean? So you're still upset about that, and so I think you should acknowledge that your rage does not land with the guy that was duped, because this is man. I'm trying, like, there is misogyny in here, but this is not what it explains, okay? There is some misogyny in this Latino men group. That's a problem within pretty much every male group. White, black, Latino, Asian, doesn't matter. There's misogyny in there, okay? That does not explain this vote. This vote is about disinformation mixing with like, just bad life, like, bad living situations for a lot of people. Like, the shit is expensive and it sucks and it's hard to live right now. And uneducated rural people, which is what it shows, by the way. If you want to go by education, never attended college, uneducated. The more uneducated you are, the more likely you are to vote for a Republican. And we've always known this. And the rural vote was the largest group of people that Donald Trump sort of switched over. And it's because they think that, like, they're going to benefit from, like, lower taxes or some shit. And it's, like, obviously not true. We know that's not true. But because the messaging of the liberals is, oh, we're going to give you tax credits. We're going to give you, on your first home loan, we'll give you a tax credit on, which is cool. But that's like, people feel like that's so fucking far away for them that it's not for them. You know what I mean? People are like, oh, my tax return. Oh my God. I mean, once a year, I'm going to get a little bit more money on I already look forward to my tax return. I want housing. You know what I mean? Like, this kind of stuff does not play when you can just easily, and we know it's easy, to trick human beings into being afraid of a scapegoat. We know the playbook of the right. They use racism and fear, and it works. You've seen exit polling on the Hispanic vote, which, by the way, most Hispanic people did not vote for Donald Trump. Okay, just Hispanic men, and just by a little bit. Okay, what was really surprising was they're saying they're all reporting American Indian here, which is just I think weird. I don't know why this is still the classification, but it is what it is. 65%, which is very high, and that is interesting. And I'm wondering where this lives. But I think like the disillusionment of America. I don't know what these communities are talking like, but I mean, like, you look at the biggest group of people. I mean, like, this is obviously the most percentage-wise. This is the most populace-wise, and it's white people. This is why we're in the Caucasians today. Look, I take no joy in saying I'm one of the good ones. I take no joy in it. I would rather we were all the good ones. And this is often white men. Look at white men, obviously. White women, though, still 53%. So you can be mad at Latino men who make up a smaller percentage of the population. What, 6% of the voting population at least? 37% of the population that voted were women. And white women voted 53% for Trump. It's a white problem. This is still white supremacy. This is still what it is. They're running on it, and it's working. Some good news. A lot of the older people are what fuck us, and they're dying by old age, and the breakdown of the FDA likely, and Social Security, etc. So there's a bright side, I guess. Being a millennial is a rough experience. You can see that actually the olds really picked up for Gen X. The greatest generation, better than the olds. I think what this is bearing out, though, I'm going to be 100% honest what I think this is. I think this would be worse if COVID didn't happen. I think this would be much closer to these numbers. But a lot of the old people that were left-leaning and masked survived, and so they pumped those fucking blue numbers up. You know what I'm saying? I think they pumped those blue numbers up as the red 65-year-olders were fucking like dry drowning from their own mistakes. The gender gap is clear. The men are on top. Women almost across the board, except for the problem group, right? 45 to 64. You see it spike in both. 45 to 64. This is your Fox Newsers. Big time Fox Newsers. Men are most young men are actually it's a 50-50 split. This is tough. There's half of them are good. That's okay. This is 18 to 29 though. We're over here. I'm in a minority group. Look at me go. 53% of men my age or thereabouts are dumbasses. I knew that already. And it gets worse as they age until they get older. And I genuinely think that, well, as you can see, men over the age of 65 are obviously worse on the subject. and women over the age are better on it because they went through Roe v. Wade. You can see the uptick, and I'm telling you, this is maskers. This is people that wore their mask during during the lockdown specifically. We need to make sure as white people, especially if there's any white libs in here, don't be blaming fucking black people ever for any of your shit on this, okay? They came out. In the 80s, that's great. I mean, frankly, look at, as the Latino vote got older, they voted against Trump, which is interesting. So young Latino men, which we knew, which describes your education, never attending college, more likely to vote for Trump. So literacy rates are dropping across the country. They don't know how to read books. This is a lot of our problem. Lack of education is something that the Republicans rely on to keep their messaging going, because it's very easy to just drool fucking out of your mouth every day and listen to Fox News slop. I want liberals to start shutting the fuck up about means testing and tax incentives, and I want you to start talking about real life things that people care about, like having health care and education and housing. Okay, you need to be leftist. I'm sorry. The answer to liberalism, neoliberalism, and the failures of it is being a leftist. You can start with just being a progressive socialist or sock demi guy. I'll take it. I will take it because you're wrong. It's quite clear you're just wrong. And if people think that you're actually helping them, they will vote for you. What was the last grade of school you completed? No college degree. Look at that. No college degree, mostly voting for Trump. Education by race, doesn't matter. I mean, we can look at all of this. You see 91% of... she even got the moderate vote, by the way. Consider yourself a moderate, mostly moderate. This was never going to move. This never did move. She courted to the right, and it didn't happen. They only say liberal, moderate, or conservative, but if you picked leftist here, you'd see this drop dramatically to like 40%. I guarantee it. They'd be like, no, I'm more of a sock dem lefty. You can see the income groups. Like, the lower income you are, the more likely you are to be a Trump supporter, which speaks to my populism. You got to tell these people that their lives are going to get better and how. You know what I mean? Most of the electorate is making under $100,000, between $50,000 and $100,000 a year. That makes sense. People under that. The only people making under $30,000 a year are usually like kids and people that rely on the welfare state, right? So you tend to vote for the people that are going to uphold that, which is good. Here you're kind of like on your own in America, which sucks. And so it feels like, this is part of the reason also that they limit the kinds of, like, the Republicans and right wing. This is why they limit a lot of goods and services that you can get from the government in these tax brackets, which, by the way, red states are the number one enjoyer of federal aid. They think their taxes are going to go. Anyway, Kamala Harris ran on not raising taxes except for $200,000. Actually, it was $400,000 or more. Does anyone in your household belong to a labor union? If they did, they were more likely to vote left. If they did not, they were more likely to vote right. Religion. Here we go. Look at this Jewish vote, by the way. This is really, really good. This shows that you do not need the Zionists. Protestant or other Christian, you're you're just going to vote for Republican, Catholic. Look at this. None. Obviously, you're going to be more left-leaning. I'm right about religion. I've been correct about religion forever. It's a brain rot. You need to get over it. It is not good for people to believe in this stuff. It makes them susceptible. All the people that go to church are watching Fox News. This is not a coincidence. This is a coordinated, like, attack, a propaganda focus by people like the Heritage Foundation. This has been happening for 50 years. It's not just that it's false. It's also the way that they beget their politics. It is quite literally organized. It's not a joke. This isn't my fucking fedora. This is just reality. Religion is your fucking number one pipeline into right-wing ideology. Religion among white voters. Look at that. Evangelical Christians. 82% on the right. Look at it. Born again or evangelical. Look at this. Obviously, exit polling shows that only about 1 in 10 LGBTQ people suck. Everybody else is pretty dope. Jake gave me the push I need to escape the Christian church. Good. I'm very proud of you. It's not easy. They isolate you in... It's weird. They isolate you within the community so it doesn't feel like isolation, but they push everything else away. And they tell you can't do certain shit, can't live your certain life. First year you ever voted, 56% voted for Republicans. This is it. This is it right here. This is the game. Disaffected young men. Disaffected young men won the vote for Donald Trump. These are kids that grew up under this is how they see it. The reality is that Donald Trump had COVID hit. He fumbled the fucking bag. We voted him out because he was dog shit. And then Joe Biden was president. And then we had to pick up the pieces. Those kids live through that era. And they see, oh, Joe Biden's president when things are bad. And now they're voting for Donald Trump. And all they have to say is, remember when school was shut down? And how much that sucked? Remember when you couldn't see your friends? Remember when you don't, all the girls hate you? That's because they should be your property, dude. Like, it's so easy to sell these guys lies. Anyway, so what's going to happen is Donald Trump and the right wing are going to go after the administration state. So your FDA, your CDC, probably also the FBI. I don't know. Probably not the CIA, but maybe. I don't know. We're going to have a lot of fucking agency issues. I think he's saying he's wanting to abolish the fucking IRS, which I'm not surprised he wants to. He's Donald Trump. Look, there's going to be a lot of things that go wrong, and we're gonna have to pick up some pieces when this is all over. And it is going to be over at some point. It will not sustain, even though they're going to try to make it so. We are in the 250th year of American empire. Not a great track record for empires in the 250th year. We are going to see mass deportations attempted and a lot of failure, but a lot of misery wrought from it. So the budget for something like that runs in the trillions. This is the rest of our lives. Well, some of it is, but like the status quo is dead. That's for fucking sure. If they so obviously within the next coming years, we have to be together as community members. And I don't mean just like this Twitch community, although I do mean, I mean that as well. Like, this is a good resource for us to coordinate and get together in disparate places because we don't all live next to each other. But also your immediate communities, like just your friends. It doesn't mean like, you have to run a fucking big community center, but you should get involved in local politics. All of us should, including myself. We should all get involved. Whether it's just like going to the city council meetings or something, like, or running or whatever, you can win these things. Every year I see down ballot, like there's people running unopposed to all sorts of shit. If you are a person that takes medications that you might not be able to get, there are of course already plenty of ways that cisgendered people access these things, and so it's not impossible to get them, but you can stock up now if you're someone that needs like reproductive health care. You can stock up on things like Plan B. You can get them over the internet. You can collectivize to buy these kinds of things and pass them out in your communities. Prophylactics, any sort of things like that. I think it's a very good practice if you are a dude or just someone in general. If you're just AMAB, get a vasectomy maybe. Would be good. You don't have to, but reproductive health care is worrisome. Trying to think. There's just so much. We're going to be talking about this for years, so it's not going to be panic buying hormones. Well, I'm not saying panic buy hormones. You can get them. You can get, unless they ban them for cis people as well. But like these drugs are floating out in the world. I'm sure resources will open up over time. There will be bastion states. If you have the opportunity, I think it would behoove you to consider moving. You don't have to, of course, but places like, even though Michigan voted red this time, we're still a blue state overall. Places like Illinois, places like Oregon, Washington, California, even, although obviously that's not feasible for everybody. But I will say the cost of living in my state, for instance, is actually kind of low. So it may feel unfeasible, but may become it. That said, if not, enrooting yourself in your community is good. And making sure that, you know the people around you a little bit. Thoughts on upstate New York? Head there if you'd like it. More lefties in Michigan, please. Oh, yeah. And we got a decent amount. A lot of the people that Kamala lost in this election, and there has been a drop-off in the election between Biden and her. Like, she is definitely less popular than Joe Biden was in 2020. I think part of that is that she's so connected to Biden's unpopular stances. Obviously, Gaza is a huge one. They kept quartering right. They were, going after Liz Cheney and stuff. No one was moved by that. It was just liberals fumbling the fucking bag again and not going as populist. We all saw the momentum slowing down when they pulled off the fucking gas. And they were like, hey, no more calling them weird. No more talking about free healthcare or anything, So the import tariffs are going to be bad. You can do a service to your family members, especially if they voted right wing, to let them know and inform them on all the bad decisions that happen for the next 4 years. I think it makes a lot of sense that we need to grassroots and keep our families informed of the things that are going on, even if they think we're annoying little guys. But talking to them and being like, look, this is why it really matters to me. And if they don't respect that, then it's worth considering what your relationships are in your life. I think they rolled their eyes and scoffed at me. Yeah, I mean, consider if you want them in your life then. I still don't know how these terrorists don't violate the USMCA. They're going to try to do whatever the fuck they want to do, and it's not going to be effective in my opinion. I don't think you're going to have an efficient fascist state, at least. It will be more efficient than the first time around, though. It's going to be a series of years that we are going to be saying I told you so a lot. And I'm not going to really revel in it as much because it's just going to suck. Like, we're going to see human rights violations. The deportations is what really upsets me, along with the anti-LGBTQ stuff. They're talking about trying to ban, like, just all sorts of trans healthcare and trying to criminalize it. States are going to fight back. You'll have bastion states. Things will get knocked around in courts. Obviously, the Supreme Court is a Trump court. And they're probably going to appoint more members. We're probably going to have to bogart that whole situation at some point. We'll see what happens. The vibe in general right now is a lot of people being like, what do we do now? And what you need to do now is take care of yourself for 2 months and prepare for bad shit to happen. Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're going to install judges and stuff. So, yeah, I mean, it's not going to be as bad as it would be if you were a migrant family. It's not going to be as bad as it would be if you are, if you happen to be white like me or whatever. It's still going to be bad for a lot of people. I think it's reasonable to make some changes in your life and consider what kind of world we want to live in. And I think it's a good one and not a bad one. And then try to make that become a reality. Part of it, though, is like we're fighting a technocracy. You know what I mean? Like it's a big uphill battle, but there's so many more of us than there are of them. It's a failure of neoliberalism every single time. Like we are this court's fascism. Isn't there that FDR quote about liberals and fascism? Democracy has disappeared in several other great nations, not because the people of those nations disliked democracy, but because they had grown tired of unemployment and insecurity, of seeing their children hungry while they sat helpless in the face of government confusion and government weakness through a lack of leadership. This is in 1938. Finally, in desperation, they chose to sacrifice liberty in the hope of getting something to eat. I believe he goes on to say that, like, liberals court fascism by their inaction. Liberal half measures do not appeal to people. And when they get burned by liberalism over and over again, which, by the way, still does horrific things, like fund wars in Gaza, for instance, and other global atrocities that have happened. The problem at the southern border, etc., is not very dissimilar. LGBTQ people still are having to fight for their rights. We still have, they literally let Roe v. Wade fall. Didn't put any protections in place then. They fumble the bag every time we need them to have one. And so, I think it's time to, really make peace with the fact that liberalism is a flawed ideology. It is a half step. They're trying to be nationalists and, statists and, fascist light, and still trying to get social points across, and it just doesn't work. They're still bowing to capitalism. They're still technocrats. It's not appealing to normal people. They don't think that this is tenable. We haven't even legalized weed. Yeah, man. Only in state. Anyway, we're going to be good eventually. It's going to be bad for a little bit. Stay safe. Stay with each other. Organize. Get involved.